Hi, welcome back to True Colors audiobook. This is chapter 19. In the last episode, Cassie's childhood dream of becoming a doctor was revived and spurred on by Justin, who believes it is her calling. She denies that, yet immerses herself in the medical textbooks that he provides and discusses with her. Her studies, along with her work, help pass the time during Michael's increased absences. And all of this has happened at a time when she inadvertently became a threat to a powerful man. In this episode, some measles patients offer Cassie the first glimmer of hope she's had in her month-long confinement. She's going to need to cling to that hope when her relationship with Michael finally reaches its breaking point, at a point where passion collides with brutal reality. Let's watch and listen to see which side wins that battle.
True Colors, Chapter 19. Less than 1 month after I arrived in camp, several men presented with rigors, fever, malaise, and a white tongue. A few days later, maculae appeared on their faces and trunks, and we soon realized we had an epidemic of measles on our hands. A dozen new men a day showed symptoms, and several died. The infirmary was overflowing, so most men simply had to remain isolated in the barracks. Thus I began making trips there to make sure the sick men had sufficient water and to administer medicine for their fever and cough. Often on my treks to the barracks, more often than could happen by chance, I was met by Sergeant Powers, the chief guard whose secret I had discovered. He showed great malice toward me, taunting me at every turn. Sometimes in the supply shack behind the infirmary. Sometimes he was waiting at my cabin. His expression was venomous, his speech vulgar. But this only when no one else was around, for then he was the epitome of benevolence and gentility. He said he knew of only one reason why a woman would take up a profession like nursing: loose morals. "And now you're taking your business into the barracks, I see." He startled me, coming up from behind me as I carried a bucket of water and some medicine bottles across the common. I halted, spilling water from the bucket. "Leave me alone, Powers. Now you and I both know that's the last thing you really want me to do. You and I both know about something that's really true, about your so-called war injury you inflicted on yourself to gain hero status and get out of your duty. But then what did you do, Powers? Get stupidly drunk and spout that sniper tale before realizing your scars weren't compatible with your story? I will share what I know with the whole Confederate Army if you don't stop badgering me." "Why don't you let me take that burden from you, Miss Golden?" he said, his voice slightly raised as a guard and a couple of prisoners passed by. "You're much too delicate to be carrying such a heavy load." He wrenched the handle of the bucket from my hand and proceeded toward the barracks. "Lovely day, isn't it?" I hated to follow him, but the men were waiting for the water. "You won't tell anyone because you know that not a soul in this world will believe you. What they will believe is what I tell them about you, that you're a tramp, a camp follower." 2 more guards passed. Powers said, "I hope this southern heat hasn't wilted you too badly, Miss Golden." When we arrived at the barracks, he turned. His face held vicious brown eyes and a distorted grin. He held out the bucket. I wanted to leave it and run, so great was my dread of this man. But I had come here for a purpose, so reached for it. He grabbed hold of my wrist and squeezed hard. Pulling me close, he whispered coarsely, "When's it my turn? I don't feel like waiting much longer." "Let go of me." I struggled to wrest free from his grasp. He released me only when he saw another guard rounding the corner of the building. I took advantage of the soldier's presence to grab the bucket and move to the door of the barrack. "Not much longer now, Miss Golden." I turned in the doorway. "Your mouth is an open grave, Powers. Your mind a clump of primordial slime. If you ever lay a hand on me again, I'll cut it off." In addition to the many freedoms I had lost thus far, One more had just been ripped from me, for after that day, the mere thought of power set my heart to pounding and my eyes to casting over my shoulder. Justin brought a steady stream of medical books, and I absorbed all my brain could hold. I looked forward to his arrival on the days he worked, for he treated me as a peer, unlike the assistant surgeon, Lieutenant Bruce Davidson. At night there were no doctors there, and I was called to tend to all matters, great and small. Sometimes there was nothing I could do but pray that the physicians would come early that morning. Michael visited whenever he could, usually 2 or 3 times a week, but he was away from Richmond more and more. I grew lonelier despite the fact that I seldom was left alone in this place for very long. Though the measles epidemic was waning, 3 fellows showed up at the infirmary early one morning with the telltale signs of the maculae on their faces and hands. "Why didn't you come in earlier?" I asked them. "You must have felt this coming on for several days." "We knew you was busy, Miss Cassie. We didn't want to bother you none." "That's why I'm here, boys. Now go on back to the barracks, and I'll be there in a little while." "Ain't you got beds here? We'd rather stay here." "Sorry, no beds." "We'll be glad to take floor space." "Please, Miss Cassie." The youngest one, Joey, had huge brown eyes and was too pathetic looking to refuse. "All right, grab some straw mats and take the corner over there away from the other patients. I'll get you all some medicine." I returned a few minutes later. "Okay, which of you heroes is going to swallow this tonsil varnish first? I'll bet you're burning up with—" My hand felt a cool face. "Well, I guess you haven't got it as bad as I thought. With all those spots, I thought—" I glanced at the other 2 and noticed they did not look feverish or dehydrated, and none of them had coughed even a single time. I took a closer look at the patient nearest me, a man of about 40. The maculae on his face looked like measles, yet different somehow. "Don't get too close, Miss Cassie," he said with a chuckle, and the 3 men exchanged sportive glances. "You might catch something." I already had the measles as a child. So did I. "But, shh, don't let on, you hear? We're getting out of here. Tonight." "What?" He placed his finger to his lips. "You gotta keep it quiet." "But how did—" "We bribed a guard for some cigarettes, keeping an extra couple of matches hidden away. Then we took a sewing needle they'd overlooked in Joey here's pack, got the point red hot, then pricked ourselves with it." "These are puncture wounds from a hot needle? Are you all crazy?" "Shh, please, Miss Cassie, don't give us away. This can work. If you let us stay here, that is. It'll be easier to break from here where the guards are more slack in the walkway on the wall closer by." "But if you get caught, we'll be no worse off than now. And we don't intend to get caught. We got it all mapped out, all the way to Maryland. Then we're home free." "Free to get back to our unit and help wipe these Rebs out," the wide-eyed Joey added. "Just wish we could take you with us, Miss Cassie," the 3rd soldier said. "This ain't no place for you." I pondered that idea for a moment. You could do the next best thing. "What's that?" "Get a message to a Colonel Kelton at the War Department in Washington and tell him I'm here. If they could arrange—" "Cassie!" I jumped up and turned. "Michael, what are you doing here?" "Looking for you." "Well, I'll be free shortly. I'll wait for you outside then." I nodded my agreement. I turned to the men on the floor. Joey smiled. "That's right, Miss Cassie. You will be free shortly." I could hardly believe the play on words. Remember the name, Colonel Kelton. When I exited the hospital, Michael stood leaning with his back against the building, his arms crossed and his face toward the sun, soaking in its morning rays. His closed eyes held in secret their sapphire magic, so he did not notice me watching him, studying his profile, his strong jaw and full chin. The longer I looked, the more taken I was with him until, transfixed by his presence, a surreal vision came upon me. He was carrying me up the remainder of the staircase at our Washington home. There were no interruptions this time. The bedroom was lit only by the huge candles mounted on the tall brass candlesticks at the four corners of the bed where we laid and began to fulfill that part of our marriage yet to be satisfied. As his lips came ever closer to mine, I breathed his name. "Ready?" My rhapsody was shattered. I had spoken his name out loud. "You said shortly, but I've come to know what that can mean." He offered me his arm. "Shall we saunter over to our spot? I had my housekeeper pack us a picnic lunch." My heart was still pounding and my neck still warm. "Is something wrong?" "No, I'd just like to change first." "Okay." He held his arm out further since I had made no effort to take it the first time. I took it now, and we walked toward my quarters. "You must be going through dresses fast here. Do you need some more?" Nothing like forcing my thoughts back to gloomy reality. "I really could use some, and as much as I hate to admit it, gray would be the most practical color. It best camouflages the blood and drainage." "You always were the practical one, Cassie." Recalling my fantasy of a moment before, I countered, "Not always." Justin met us as we walked across the yard. He had been off for several days and welcomed me with a spirited, "Good morning, Cassie." Nodding toward Michael, he simply stated, "Colonel." Michael returned the gesture. "Major." "Busy in the hospital today?" Justin asked. "Like usual." "How is Epperson's ischial ulcer doing?" "The tissue is granulating well now, but Jem's leg has opened and he's back in." "Not again. Every time we let him go back to the barrack, he neglects it. It's as if he doesn't want it to get better. Guess we'll just have to keep him till it's completely healed this time. No new measles patients, are there?" I straightened. "Well, as a matter of fact, 3 more came in just a little while ago, but they're pretty far along already. I let them stay in the infirmary." I really thought we'd seen the last of the new cases. "Excuse me," Michael interjected, "but we have a rendezvous, Cassie, remember? And all this talk about pox and pus is killing my appetite." When we arrived at my cabin, I fumbled with my chain to retrieve my key, but it was stuck inside the facing of my dress. I contorted my body in an attempt to free it. "Here," Michael said, reaching into his pocket. "Use mine." The key easily slid into the lock and turned. The door opened. He did not miss the irritated look I shot him. I know," he said. "I'll wait for you out here." Instead of entering, I continued to gaze indignantly at him. "What's the matter?" "You kept a spare key? You insinuated that I had the only key. Keep it protected, you said, so it's hung on this chain where even I have trouble getting at it. You deceived me, again. Why, Michael? And don't tell me it's a matter of national security. Can we go inside and discuss this?" We entered the cabin and he shut the door despite the heat that hung heavily in the closed-up room. "Why, Michael?" "That first night here, I was afraid you'd reject the idea of me keeping a second key, so I left that part out. But I think it's best that there's a spare. I'm sorry to have withheld that information." "You're only sorry you got caught. You're always telling me to trust you, then you do things like this. You don't trust me. The old Michael Byron in Washington knew I had the sense to see the logic in keeping a spare key. Obviously, this new Michael Byron sees things differently. Would you please stop drawing these old and new Michael Byron portraits? Why? Because you can't measure up to him?" He set his sapphire eyes hard on me, and a quixotic hint of challenge filtered through them. He took slow, deliberate steps toward me. "Can't measure up, huh?" I backed into the door. He placed one hand on it behind me. His other hand touched my neck, caressed it, and slowly moved up to my face. My heart began to thunder beneath my wedding ring. He took hold of my chin and guided my lips to meet his. I melted like hot tallow. A succession of impassioned kisses and thrilling touches tore down every hindrance. My arms surrounded him. I couldn't get close enough to him. Gone was the feeling of mistrust, of betrayal. Emotions no longer collided within me. There was only one emotion now. The sound of laughter and loud voices startled us as several men passed close by the door. Between increasingly heavy breaths, Michael buried his face in my hair. I wish there was some place we could go, some place clean and beautiful, some place where we wouldn't have to worry about guarding your reputation. I could not live like this anymore, loving him for who he had been, despising the lies he told, wanting him but not ready to believe in him. I had to make a choice. It must not be a decision based on the passion of the moment. The consequences would be lifelong. I must either send him away for good or... I looked long into the blue pools of his eyes. To say this meant overriding every conviction I had held since the beginning of the war, but I could not deny that my love for him was still deep enough to do so. There is a place. What? Where? Take me home with you. He stared into my relenting eyes. I'll live with you in Richmond. I'll be your wife and the keeper of your home. We'll start our family there. I'll put aside all politics, I swear it, and your friends will become my friends. You can admit to your superiors that we're married, and then they'll trust that I'll keep your secret. We can... No! The force of his refusal stunned me. They could see it as an attempt to help you escape. I cannot have them questioning my loyalty again because of you. No one must know of our marriage, Cassie. Do you understand? He could not have inflicted more pain if he had struck a physical blow. Your position in the Confederacy means more to you than having me with you as your wife? More than freeing me from prison? His silence crushed me. Tess spoke the truth. All I've ever been to you is a stooge in these spy games you play with such mastery. I turned away. We stood entombed in a heavy silence. He walked spiritlessly to the door. I'll continue to send provisions regularly through an aide. Let him know if there's anything else you want. If you should need me, let him know that too, or send a message through the commandant. Without further words, he left me. In the weeks that followed, I struggled through each day, keeping my mind focused on my tasks. In my quiet moments, I prayed that the 3 measles patients who had successfully escaped would get through to the north and to Colonel Kelton. And when alone in the night, I thought constantly of the man I had loved so much. I awoke from dreams of fulfillment with him only to be overwhelmed by the barrenness of my bed. I wondered if he experienced any of these comfortless emotions, or if he even was alone. Thus I kept the secret of my marriage in the deepest reaches of my heart, and there it dwelt alongside grief and disillusionment.
Talk about brutal reality. Has this rendered their relationship irredeemable now? In the next episode, Cassie learns some disappointing news about Justin, is invited to a dance of all things, and is confronted by Michael with discouraging news and an accusation that tears them even further apart, if that was even possible. So join us next time, and I hope you'll like and share and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you next time.